Hi, everyone. Welcome to our photo live for September. I'm Brianna Burnett, and I'm on this call with Jill Mott, and we're going to be presenting protecting your images, which is a really important topic for you guys to think about now and in the future. I just want to remind everybody, if you haven't been on a call with us before, this is a casual live call, and we welcome any questions that you might have. There are places where you can type in the chat or you can type in the questions. And I'm going to be watching both of those areas for Jill while she's going to be presenting topics to you guys. So if you have questions that come in while we're presenting, if you have topics that come in that you want to share, please feel free to jump in and join us. It makes it a lot more fun if you guys are here participating and helping us to share experiences and information and reminding us of things that we forget, because again, this is live. And I'm going to turn this over to Jill, and I'm going to turn off my screen, but I did want to just say hi to everybody and let you guys know that we really are real people on the end of the call. All right, so Jill, your turn.
All right, and can you see my screen, Bree?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm gonna hit screen change presenter, and I think you may have to give me some love there.
Okay. Is this
There we
better?
go.
I gotta find myself because
Here
you're
we
showing
go.
as me. Got it?
Yeah, I think so. Can you guys
Okay.
see my screen? Hopefully not my messy desktop. A little bit of my messy desktop, and I apologize. I'm gonna see if I can make that a little simpler for everybody. Hey guys, thank you. Thanks for the great
That's good.
introduction, Bree. Can you still see me?
I can. We can still see you.
Okay, so I can't see myself, so hopefully I don't do anything embarrassing. But this is such an exciting topic for us this month. I've been spending hours and hours researching, and I think I'm going to go for maybe a PhD in copyright and digital management and all of that. It's really pretty fascinating, and I learned a lot myself. I've been hurt by the copyright issue, and my images have gone out of my control. One thing as Americans, and when we were planning this presentation, we wanted to peg it towards the idea of 9/11, and that comes to mind for us on a long way removed is protecting your images. And as Americans, we have incredible, incredible freedom to create. We are so blessed with that option. And with that comes the ability to share, which is great because it helps us build our businesses. And as artists, sometimes we get a little bit carried away with that creative freedom and the juices flowing, and we forget to protect ourselves. And it's only when we've been wronged or really hurt that we start to think about issues related to copyright. And I hope today just gives you some ideas of what you can do to present yourself or protect yourself, and being aware of a lot of things that are out there that you need to be thinking about. The baseline of copyright is that your work is protected. You own the image that you create. And this isn't just about photography, this is about a lot of other different art forms. And that is pretty amazing for us as photographers. The moment that you press your shutter is the moment that that image is owned by you. Now, a lot of things happen in the law, in society, in circumstances that bring this into question. We're going to talk about those today. But I think one thing I didn't realize, and I think you guys will find pretty interesting, is when was copyright put into the Constitution? And I'd love for you guys to chat. Bree, what's your guess? Hopefully you don't know. Well, I do hope you know, but what would your guess be?
I want to think that Ben Franklin was pretty aware of copyright law.
Ooh, very good. Anybody else want to jump in there? Even though I just kind of gave it away with my enthusiasm. Any other guesses? 1790. 1790. And that is pretty amazing when I found that out. What do you think were some of the first products that were protected? I'm going to ask you, Bree, because you're the only one that can talk to me.
Oh goodness,
Right,
it's like a pop quiz I wasn't prepared for.
yeah,
Those are my
I know.
those are my favorite.
Pop quiz. Well,
I think first things that were protected were inventions.
you're the first person that got it right that I've been quizzing on this. Exactly. Inventions, science, literary works, of course, things like probably
Mm-hmm.
maps. And I don't think that artists were really on the, forefront of our forefathers' minds necessarily. They obviously had a respect for literacy and protected authors, but obviously they had no idea about photography and what was going to be coming down the line, centuries later.
Mm-hmm.
But it is pretty amazing
Mm-hmm.
that we have copyright and that we are so free to create, produce, share, and share on our terms as photographers. It's really important to understand the basics of this, which is your photography, in theory, cannot be produced without your permission. Derivatives of your work. Someone can't take your image, alter it, and then call it their own. I'm gonna show you some examples of this, and maybe some of you know some. So if you know any, type them in there. Or saying that this image is yours when it's not, when it's someone else's. And that has a lot of connotation with, of course, plagiarism. How many of you out there had an idea that this image was produced originally from a photograph? I'm
I
pretty sure
did.
everyone, you did.
I did.
Oh, all
We
right,
got,
Bree, you're on the hot spot now. Who
I know
is
we
the
but
author?
we do have some of the chat, and they knew as well. Mm-hmm.
Good, good photographers. Good photographers. I presented on this speech this morning to a group of people, and no one had any idea about this. And obviously, they weren't photographers. But this is
Mm-hmm.
an iconic image that represents a lot. The artist of this image, Shepard Perry, actually got the idea, the influence, and did use some of the images in his production from AP photographer Manny Garcia. This image was actually purchased by the Smithsonian Institute and is somewhere in their archives. I don't know if it's hanging or not. This is some of Shepard Perry's work, and personally, I love the work. I really like this style. And Obey is one of his original pieces that kind of started his career. There's some great books on him. This issue, there's a Hulu documentary. Highly recommend that you have a look at it. The work below here is some of his more recent. It's called We the People. It's great work. Here's the image, the original image that Shepard Perry took this from. And sadly, what is so difficult about this for me is that he lied about using the image. And then he destroyed any evidence that he had in reference to that. This case went on for quite some time. Obviously, this began in 2009. And Manny Garcia, who's the AP photographer, he wasn't really involved. But AP, the Associated Press, were the owners of this image, and they had to pursue this. Sadly for Shepard Perry, he had to pay a settlement, and this really did a lot of damage to his career. He's recovered from that very nicely, but it's something that a lot of people don't know, that you can't just take anything off the internet and call it yours. Here's the ironic thing. Now everybody is trying to duplicate this style. There's filters in Photoshop for this style. There's tutorials. And you have to ask yourself, what is the copyright law on that? This was his idea, or was it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting to see how one picture can evolve into so many different things. And I think that's when photographers start to get emotional about it, right? Because, hey, I took this picture and now it's completely out of my control. People are making Photoshop filters for it. One of the claims that people have in regards to this is that the idea of fair use, and I'll tell you guys, a lot of this stuff I'm considering fair use because of educational purposes. I have screenshotted, if that's even a word, I have taken screenshots of different things from different sites to present to you today. One of the big things about using fair or using images or artwork or anything that has a copyright is the idea that you who are using it will not make money off that. You will not use that image to sell your product or promote your idea or allow that the image, the artwork should not be taken out of context. Here's a great story, and all this stuff, guys, that I'm putting out here, look up yourself. We'll give you a PDF of this. I'm only skimming the surface here. We're only skimming the surface. And one thing I want to make sure that I'm reiterating here is that we are not lawyers. We do not have our degrees in law or even certificates. This is just what we've learned, what we've read, and so anything that is bigger than us, which is pretty much everything, you really need to talk to professionals in the law industry. This is an image that was shot by a photographer. Another photographer artist took it and modified it. And there is this myth in the copyright world that if you modify it within 10%, it's okay. And that really isn't, that is just what it is. It's a myth. There's so many other contributing factors of it. Really, one of the best things you can do is just ask to collaborate, or artists could ask to collaborate with you. Maybe some of you know this or have seen some pictures. Bree, do you know this one?
I do. I do.
It's pretty amazing. This little monkey did a self-portrait of himself that the photographer, of course, set up. He didn't have his own camera and tripod or any of those things, but it's a pretty amazing image. PETA, who is an animal protection, what is it? People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, decided that the monkey should actually own the copyright to this image and took it all the way to court. The law says that a human has to create the work for it to be copyrighted. And it was just a long battle for this photographer, who I believe is English. I may be incorrect on that, and had to obviously pay his legal fees to deal with this situation. The court awarded, I believe, some awards to the photographer, and he then returned them or donated them to another organization. But the idea that people can take this to this level and is pretty insane. We have such an amazing ability to create and share images lots of different ways, and we do a social media presentation in the year, so keep your eye out for that. We talk a lot about different apps and how to use it to build your business. And the great thing is that ability to share. What comes into play that becomes so challenging for us because we're artists and we're emotional is this idea of, what if I put my image out there and someone takes it? What if I'm miscredited? What am I going to have to do? How do I protect myself? Am I losing money? On the left here, you can see an image. This is just some friends in a pool that I shot a few years ago. I texted it to my girlfriend, who then texted it to her 12-year-old daughter. And what's the first thing that she did? She put it on Instagram. And that's okay, but there was no tag or reference. Do I expect that I'm going to make any money off that image? No. But I want the ability for someone to see that I'm a professional photographer and hire me to take more pictures. And that's why one of the main reasons for me, it's important to have control of my images, because I want people to know the reference of where this came from to get me more work. Does a 12-year-old girl know about anything to do with copyright? No. Is it the thing that pisses me off the most about misuse of my images? Oh yeah. And I'm pretty sure everyone in the audience has had an image that's been taken and someone's been put, maybe not taken, maybe shared without any contribution to yourself. Write it right in the chat if you have had that happen. I'm pretty sure everyone has had that happen. The other thing for me that is difficult to deal with is when my images are mislabeled or or not credited at all. This was some work I did for a nonprofit in Namibia in Africa. You can see here this first image says edited intern, right? One, I'm not an intern. The title of this has nothing to do with me. Not that it should, but it should say something, you know, either Little Shop of Physics or whatever it may be. What happens, this organization feels so strongly that no one should take credit for anything that they do personally. They're very collaborative, which is great, and I understand that. But what happens then is newspapers, PR organizations, you name it, start to take these photos and use them for other benefits other than me, and nothing comes back to me. And that's what makes me really kind of get a little bit hurt and feeling a little bit wronged about it. Did we get any responses in the chat, Bree?
We do have a lot. So a couple people have had this happen, and a few people have specifically said like they found photos that have been stolen from them
Oh
from
yeah.
social media. And then there's a couple of suggestions to join PPA, which was going to be one of my sort of platforms for you guys, because they do help with that. They do actually have, as part of your membership, they'll help you with copyright issues. They have a team that will help with that, which is probably worth the student fees across the board.
For sure. We're going to talk
Mhm,
about that a little bit more too,
mhm.
because they are one of the leading organizations. I just want to touch on a few more examples and get some more details from those folks that are online. Nice to see you guys all out there. I can see who would have problems out there. Hello, Liam. I'm sure you've had copyright issues. For me, this example that I have on the screen is one that really like went straight to my heart. And this was a photographer who covered the Haiti earthquake, and I can't remember the year, it probably says there somewhere. And he used a platform called TwitPic, which no longer exists. And that image went all over the world, and I'm sure it was taken out of context. I can't read all of these headlines, so I can't tell for sure. But what really sucked about this, and you guys can read below, the photographer was actually sued by the organization that he was working for, and then asked to, you know, take down the image. It was a long drawn out battle, and it really made a big difference in terms of copyright. And this is probably one of the more recent well-known cases here. And one of the reasons that it took so long and was so complicated was because of TwitPic's contract and what they said, their terms of service. This is often referred to as TOS. You'll see it in abbreviation, TOS, terms of service. And if you guys are reading this, while I'm kind of talking about it, can you see how restrictive this is to you, the photographer, right? It's saying that it can have the ownership, it can be distributed, it can be sold, it can be turned into pretty much anything. It's pretty constrictive in terms of your own right to the photo. And if we go back to the beginning slide, you own the image with some exception, which we'll discuss in a minute. At the minute you press that shutter. This company combined and went with, and I can't think, and if anyone knows, they merged with another company, but they went out of business. And frankly, I'd like to say that it had something to do with this. It was too restrictive. There have been so many changes to the social media platforms, their restrictions, and it's obvious that this is on everybody's mind with the heads of Google, Facebook, Twitter meeting in front of the House and Senate and being drilled. There is an issue, and it's really, really important that you and me, because I tell you what, I've hit that little box a million times and never looked twice at it, take into consideration what and how we want our images to be used. During my research, I recently found this, and I want everybody out there to go online and look for this. This is an extension or a plugin to your browser. You should do it too, Bree, but maybe not right now. And what this does is it simplifies those contracts that you're looking at every time you sign up for something, and it color codes them. Green, good, you're good to go. Yellow, maybe think about it. Red, probably not, and gray, block. But have a look at this. You can get this plugin for free for any of your browsers, Google Chrome, Safari, whatever other ones that are out there that folks are using. It's pretty intensive. And this, I just uploaded, it is amazing. So have a look at that, because it is important. It's not enough, oh, I didn't read it, I didn't know. You cannot do that. The image still belongs to you, but are you going to spend hours and hours and hours of trying to track it down and expensive hiring a lawyer? Heck no. The exception to this rule of when the image belongs to you is when you're hired. It's called work for hire. This doesn't mean freelance. It's work for hire. And this actually would come in the form of a contract, right? So if you are a newspaper photographer, I don't know if I have any of my newspaper photography. I got some photojournalism students in there. Hey, Gunny. And if you are working for a newspaper, like Manny Garcia was in a newspaper, but it was an agency, everything that he shoots belongs to that company. Anything that AP sells with his name on it, the money goes to him. That's usually the case for any newspapers, editorial magazines. With weddings and portraits, you can write that in yourself into your own contract, or if you're perhaps a second to that. I've heard of a couple stories of students doing assisting other wedding photographers, and the wedding photographer saying they can't use their images that they shot at the wedding for anything else, including their portfolio, which to me seems a bit extreme, but it's their prerogative to do so. And that's something that you really, really need to check, especially if you're shooting with someone. And to be honest, in my newspaper days, I was pretty naive, and I was trying to get around this, and I'd say, oh, well, this is the camera that I bought myself. It's not company equipment, and I didn't shoot this at the same time, thinking that, I could get away with it, but that's not the case. So either keep this in mind at all times, of course, especially if you're shooting for someone or with someone. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that have had people just come up and like put their hand in front of your lens, or you can't take my picture, or that's a picture of me, it's mine. That I own that. And again, I want to bring you guys back to that idea. The minute you take that photo, it belongs to you. And it is a sad thing. And I think about that myself being on the other end as a citizen or a mom or an individual that I don't own my own image, that I don't own my own likeness, that there's a lot of room for debate in that. And of course, celebrities, it's a whole different thing because they're brands. But if you go back to the baseline of you owning that image, or the minute your shutter is released, keep that in your mind. Now, this image here is a complicated one in that I was, excuse me, in a museum. So if the museum wanted to come for me and they decided that I was on private property and my admission to buy in there, so on their little ticket, if it says images cannot be used for any commercial use, say I wanted to use this for something other than a portfolio shot or something else, they could potentially come after me. So you have to be really, really careful. I think this is where students get trumped up, so to speak. All right. So true or false? If someone hires you to do their family portraits for Christmas, who owns the image? I want to see if we get any feedback back in there. I'm going to give it a couple seconds.
Got a little bit.
Who owns the images? We getting anybody?
Yeah, we've got lots of falses, and most of them think that the photos belong to the photographer.
Good. Yes, we're getting somewhere.
And
Yes, absolutely. The photos belong to you unless they're work for hire, right? Under the contract, you create the images, they belong to you. You are then giving your subject, your client, the privilege, the ability to, if you decide to, which is another whole photo live, print these at their disposal. They can go wherever and print them. They can hang them. They can perhaps use them for their Christmas card, which is pretty common. Yeah, they should be able to use them for the Christmas card. Are they going to make any money off their Christmas card? Probably not. Are you going to make money off their Christmas card? Yes, you are, right? Because they're going to say, those are amazing photos and I need mine done right now. So I don't know if you guys have ever gone to, say, Kinko's, or it's called FedEx Kinko's now, or Walgreens or Walmart, and tried to have something printed, and then they said, no, you don't have the rights for this. This looks for like a professional photographer ticket. We need the print release. You may get caught sometimes doing that when you're trying to print one of your own photos, right, Brie? It's usually when it's your photo.
yeah,
Well,
I do have a question that just came in from Amanda. She asked about the photos belonging to them, and what if this is a non-paid session?
Oh, they most definitely belong to you. They belong to you either way. They
Right.
belong to you the minute the shutter is clicked, right? They belong to you, and then you again are giving the subject permission to use them. So that's why you have to be careful, guys. You can't just say, here's my whole take, do whatever you want with it, right? Or here's these high resolution images. I don't know if I have anybody in photojournalism who's just done their environmental portraits, but then that person who's a business owner, let's say, is going to put it on their website, and they're maybe not going to give you credit, but guess what? They're going to make money from that. And they're probably going to want more because you give stuff to people for free and they only want more, right? So it's better to decide, and this is where the emotional part comes in. It's better for you to decide, how am I going to let this go? What do I want out of this? Do I want this business owner to give me credit? Yeah, of course I do, because I want return business. Do I think that this person's gonna make money by selling the image and charging $10,000 for it and it ending up in an ad campaign? Probably not, but the potential is there. If, say, for example, I have a student who's doing some tattoo um, portraits. What if that person gets huge, right? What if that person goes into a national tattoo magazine or ends up on one of these tattoo shows and they need an image for every bit of their publicity? And you just said, go ahead, use this image for, whatever you want. That's when it starts to hurt. That's when it starts to sting, because think about what you did in terms of time, effort, money, sweat, creativity to create that image. And people are just using it, right? So that's where it comes hard. And you had some experience with that, Bree, right?
Mm.
With the
What
idea that, I guess not. I guess I'm thinking of another instance. I was going to think about the watermark, but we're going to get to that.
Well, we do have a really good question that sort of is the flip side of that, is that there was a question, if you do a photo session and it's like a portrait session, but then you get somebody that wants to purchase those for stock images, like is that if you still own the images, you're able to do that?
Yes, you are. I think that it's good ethics and morals, though, to check with your subject
Mhm.
about
I
that.
mean, that's why you
Um,
also want to, before you start with any portrait work, you want to make sure that you're signing a model release with all of
yes,
your clients.
and we're going to get
Mhm.
to that in a second here. Um, both Bree and I just did really quick searches, and the reason why these images are up. So while we're talking, you guys can do this. We did searches on just our name and hit images, and all kinds of stuff came up, stuff that I don't even remember shooting. And one thing that came up was this image down here, which is Sonny Lubick. He's a Colorado State photographer, or excuse me, coach, pretty well known. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a good picture. Did I really take that? And I went back and found out it was when I was working at the newspaper in the Coloradoan. That picture could, I don't even know who the player is. He's pretty famous. Jordan Ballard, Jordan. Anyways, there's a potential that I could make money off that image, but I cannot because I was work for hire. So do a search on yourself and see what's out there. It's a good way to see what is out there that is being used, and maybe do a little bit more digging. Just to back up in terms of some of the questions that we've been hitting, one thing that you can do is offer a print release to your client. This then allows them to post, as you can see here. Hopefully you guys can see this big enough on your screens. You can, which will allow them to use their social media, images on social media. You can also make those stipulations that if they use them on social media, they need to keep your watermark on them or they need to credit you. You have control. So if you don't care that much, or it's not one of your favorite pictures, or you really don't want them to know, anybody know you took that photo, which is the occasion sometimes for me, I'm not going to make a big fuss about it. But what I what happens to me often when I do senior portraits, right, young kids, is I send them a photo. Hey, here's a sneak peek. Here's have a look at this. Then they start going on putting filters all over it, and it becomes something that's not mine anymore and doesn't represent the type of work that I do. And that's another area where I feel very, very wronged. And so I want to control that. There's tons of templates out there on print releases. The example that I have down here from Poppy Lane Photography, I don't know this person. I just did a quick search. I thought was very well written. And, you can look at other photographers' work and see what they're putting. Now think about this. If you were to copy this into your own print release and use it, would that be copyright? I don't know. Let's see what everybody has to say.
It
So,
probably is. Yeah.
yeah. So aside from owning it right away when you pull the trigger, basically, people ask, do you need to put the copyright sign on it? You do not. You can, it is understood. Now, the reason that you would take this a step further and register it with the copyright department is to protect yourself even more. If someone took these images and started to make money off it, would you have the ability to get damages, cease and desist, have those images protected? And quite honestly, I have not done this, but I have an upcoming project that I'm going to be using, sharing, and I think I am going to do this. Bree, have you ever sent anything into the copyright office?
Only with whenever we did like some large group projects that were
Mhm.
like from a school or from like a university. Hmm. But never for myself. But I think I might
Yeah.
be learning something
I
right
think we
now.
should. I think we should here. And it does cost, right? And I think individually, and I could be wrong, it's 35 an image unless you do a group registration. And it sounds from the research that I've done that that's the best way to do. So say you have a series of images that you want to protect, you would do that. And then I dug a little deeper because it is intimidating to think, oh my gosh, I have to go and get all my work together and figure out all these things. The form that you fill out is pretty basic. I'm not an Excel fan, but you can see here that you need a title for your image and a few other details to complete this and do a great group registration. And it really is ultimately the way that you can protect yourself. Do you need to do it for everything you shoot? No, of course not. Could you, should you do it for images in your portfolio? Yes. I know I've got Liam Douglas on the line here, so many of you guys know him from Facebook and other
Mhm.
presentations, and he sells his work quite a bit from on a variety of different stock agencies. And when you decide what the value of your image is, and if it has any value, if you have an image that sells a lot, obviously that's something that you want to protect. The thing to also realize, and I know I just have so much to talk about here, the baseline or the beginning of all this is where can you photograph? Where is it legal for me to take pictures? Can I go to a park and take a picture of a cute little kid on the swing and then sell it? Well, as a matter of fact, you can, right? Any areas that are publicly accessible, right? Meaning there's no roadblocks, you're not going underneath the chain to get it, you're not breaking any laws, you're not obstructing any flow of traffic, are public, you can take places. The exception, of course, is any federal buildings, right? So courthouses, airports usually, that's lightened up a lot. I'm sure you guys have realized, any kind of water treatment facility, dams. Actually, you can see here, this is a chart that I know you all have from your photojournalism book,
Mhm.
that gives you where you can photograph, what time, and basically how. So the idea is that there's a reasonable expectation of privacy. So if we're in the restroom, it is illegal for someone to come in there, put the camera underneath the stall and take a picture of us because there is an expectation of privacy. Can I stand outside someone's house and look into their house and take a picture of them cooking dinner? As a matter of fact, you can because they have their windows open, right? They don't have their shades pulled, right? They don't have an expectation of privacy. Let me tell you, that does become tricky, however, and you have to really, really pay attention to that. And again, this is another presentation I think we should do, Bree, at some stage, is this idea of morals and ethics. What's
Mhm.
okay? Do you want it to happen to you? right? And so those are things to be thinking about. I want everybody out there to go online also and find this. Some of you have had my photojournalism class, should have this already. Bert Craig's, it's right at the bottom here. And you can go to his website and download this photographer's rights for free, right? What I recommend you do is you download it, print it, read it, and keep it in your bag. Because if you're ever in a situation where you're getting hassled, you can always pull this out and refer to it. The biggest problem and the biggest fear, and a lot that I know that a lot of students suffer from, is this idea of anxiety and who has the right to photograph what, when, where, how. And security guards, emergency personnel, you just go online right now and you'll find any story where someone is intimidating another person out of taking pictures, telling them they need their card, they need their camera, they need their this or that. And that is illegal if you're on public
I
property,
have
if you're
had,
not distracted.
I, right, I have had students who have had some confrontation with people, and then others who I think, and this is, Jill, where it gets difficult, is that, is it public property if you're in, say, and some of the worst culprits end up being like, for some of our students, end up being like shop owners and
Mm-hmm.
maybe businesses, because we do require that they go and photograph places. And so,
Right.
what is the rule? What is the rule if you're at a business that is owned by someone?
Good question. Good question. It's private property. Starbucks is private property. Walmart is private property. Those are private businesses. You should always check ahead of time and ask them, is it okay to photograph? Right. A lot of this has been is gone by the wayside because so many businesses out there are saying, take a picture here and hashtag us, right? So that feels like it's legal, that it's encouraged. But when it comes to professional photographers, people have a whole different way of thinking about things. And so you
Mm.
have to be really careful. And the best approach is to ask. I swear some of the meanest folks out there are the mall cops. I'm telling you, you go into the mall, you're thinking this is public because, anybody can go in there, but each individual business is private. And
Mhm.
I swear they have come running for me in a mall when I'm not even in a business. I'm just in a hallway taking pictures. Not with a cell phone though, right? The first time you pull out your big camera is when people start to freak out.
Mhm.
So it's always, in my opinion, for the most part, we could talk about this as a debate question, better to ask first.
Yeah.
So,
Jill, I had a student who was photographing, oil and gas businesses, like
mm, oh yeah.
refineries and things like that. And he was actually off property and photographing it through fences and things like that. And so he
Hmm.
wasn't on the property, but it was photographing private property. And they ended up taking him in to their security area and trying to take his cameras, and um, he really said that the thing that saved him was that he had like his student ID on him. So
Hmm.
it wasn't a license, but it was his student ID that they were like, okay, so you're studying photography? And they're like, he's like, yes, I'm like, and I'm doing this project about like oil and gas in Texas, or whatever it was. And
And
then we have uh, then and then just as Liam has just written that he too has had some problems with he's and had a run-in with Homeland Security and the FBI in downtown Atlanta. And just to follow up with that, I had students who were photographing in a downtown area and didn't even realize that they were photographing near a federal building. And so they weren't really photographing the building, but they were actually photographing people on the street. And it ended up
Yep.
being a jury that was walking back and forth to lunch, that was being escorted to
Ooh.
lunch back again. And so they, they sort of had some issues that came up with that. But what I want to clarify is that all of these stories, as sort of dramatic as they are, I have thousands of photography students that I've had over a course of 20 years. And so, it's like one in a handful. You just have to be really aware of where you're photographing, and then again, it's good, like she said, to know your rights, like to be aware of what you can photograph and what is acceptable. Um, we did have one student that wanted to be unmuted.
Oh, okay. Let's hear it. Let's go for it.
Yeah, yeah, let's go for it. Okay, so I'm gonna try to do that, and she just has a little story I think she wants to share, and it's Adrian. So here I go, Adrian. You're unmuted. Well, almost. Give me a second. Oh, technology.
The beauty of
There you
live.
are. Hi, welcome. Hello.
How you doing?
Oh, hello.
Hi. I just wanted to be able to ask questions without having to type and all.
I hear ya. Talk to us.
The model releases, I do use those. My wife and I make sure we use those before we photograph models, and they usually don't object. They just want a clarification on what it means exactly, and I just told them that just gives me the right to use your images however I please for the most part. And
So
they
do you use a digital version, or do you use a paper version?
digital. This one is on the iPad where they read it, they sign it. It has their home address, a photograph of them, and I email a copy to them as well.
Which one is it? Do you know which brand?
Um, 1 second, I'll grab it.
Okay. And that is a great point, and definitely where we're headed. What is a model release, right? This just because again, you own the picture the minute you pull the shutter, you own that picture. But this model release, what the model release does is it allows you to sell the image and make commercial gains from that. So that's what's really important. Say you wanted to put it in a book, and sell the book. Say you wanted to, it was looked at and someone wanted to use it in an advertisement. Anything for where there's more of a financial gain, this is where you need to have these model releases. And as Adrian said, it's most people, they actually, I read recently, prefer to have the digital version than the paper. Somehow the paper version feels more legal, intense. So there's a lot of options. Did you find yours?
Yes, it's from Snapwire, and it's just called Releases.
Yep. It's a great one. I have that one up, and it's nice because, as Adrian said, you can add the photo that of them right there. You can add it. You can email them so they have a copy for their records. You can pre-fill out all the information, your everything that you want to have there. And then, Adrian, how do you keep track of those?
They're all still on the iPad Plus with email. Like I said, I email each one of them out,
Nice.
so they're all retained. But I have a story about that if you guys have time.
Well,
Yeah, do tell.
I have just a response about being able to have that email, is that you're already building a database then of clients later to be able to send emails out and be like, hey, I've got a special going on, or hey,
Yep.
remember me, it's time
Yep.
for family photos, which is awesome. So
Yep.
that's great. That's great that it's all digitized for you.
Yep,
Ooh, that's a
exactly.
good idea. I hadn't thought about using it that way.
Yep.
Oh,
Actually,
tell us your story.
oh well, it was about an individual that I photographed, and I had his image up on Instagram, and it was up there for months. And he contacted me. He wanted me to take the image down, and I was like, "Why?" He's like, "Well, I don't like it." And I said to him, "Well, I can appreciate that, but this is my page, and it's staying up." So, he started going on, and I was like, look, besides, you signed a model release, which gives me the right to have it up there. I was like, if you want me to take it down, you can buy the rights to the photos or to the session.
Ooh, hardball.
He bought it, and he paid
Did he
way
really?
more than he actually paid to take the actual photo.
Well done. Well done. Well done for having the courage and the knowledge to say that. That's awesome because that is exactly it. And that's called a transfer of copyright. So when you guys are out there searching for copyright and looking at all these different things, I'm assuming you'll get as distracted as me. You will see something called transfer of copyright, which is exactly that. They have to pay, or someone has to pay to have that copyright become theirs, excuse me. And then Adrian no longer has the right to use that image. He's sold it.
Exactly.
He could write into the contract, a time frame, say 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, or have other stipulations. But that's
Right.
excellent response. Excellent response. And again, that's where it's emotional. Do you feel sorry for this guy because, his whole career is based on modeling, or he just doesn't like the picture, he's oversensitive, or he's in witness protection, or whatever the circumstances are? You really need to take that into consideration. And again, that goes to the morals and ethics. Quick one here, I posted this on Facebook. This is a really interesting battle, just basically similar to what we've been talking about. This photographer did a project in New York where he set up an elaborate lighting system on the streets of New York and just waited for people to hit the mark when they came through. They had no idea that their photo was taken. He was on a public place. This gentleman did not want his photo, did not agree to it, and it went through a pretty significant battle here because DeCorsia did make a financial gain on that. The court ultimately ruled that it was protected and the photographer won this case. But this is a great example of those ideas of using model release. I'm going to leave it there. I have a personal story to share, but I just want to
I'm
make sure we
gonna,
only have about.
yeah, Jill, I'm just gonna jump in. Adrian, I'm gonna put you back on mute. That was awesome for you to share with us, and that's exactly the kind of information we needed. That was great. And I just have a couple of questions that came in that I want to kind of
Yeah,
follow up with before we leave. Just to clarify, they're asking like, should they be doing model releases right now for schoolwork?
yes,
I
I
said
think you should.
yes, especially, I mean, download this thing. Like Adrian already told us it's awesome. Like it's perfect. Download
And
this and get started. But also, and here's where my story comes in, is that you guys don't know if while you're in school, you actually don't know where these images are going to go or where they're going to lead or where you're going to use them in a couple of years. And so you're just starting out, but you may not realize like the breadth of exactly what you're doing. And so having already covered your bases is a great idea. Um, so yeah, go
and
ahead and get into
uh,
practice.
and sorry, Bree, I'm cutting you off. I'm
And then the
jumping on. There's
second
so
question,
much more I want to say.
oh
The
no,
other
no, there's so many.
the other things, get in the habit. I didn't need a photo release, model release when I was working for a newspaper because I was under the newspaper. But and so I never got in the habit. I'm traveling on an upcoming trip, and I don't know how I'm going to be using the images. I don't know if I'm going to have them try to produce something in a magazine with them. I don't know what I'm going to do with them. But I know that I don't want to have to go back and try to find the people that are in there. And if you can make it a habit and make it part of what you do, it'll be so much easier. The other thing I want to point out with that is you don't know who people, not only who you will become, but who are the people that you are photographing will become. They could become celebrities. They could sadly become ex-murderers, but let's think they're going to be celebrities. But those images turn out to be some of the most valuable that you will have. and they can be totally random, and you would not suspect it in a million years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure we get everybody. I'm going to try to make sure that we
The
want to
next
try to stick.
little question that we wanted to talk about, if they sign one model release, do they have to do that every time? Like if they have a model that they photograph quite a bit, do you have to do one every time?
You know, that's a really good question. I was just having that discussion because you guys have probably been to the doctor's office or something and they say signature on file,
Mm-hmm.
or something else. You've already signed something, and I'm going to have to say that that's a pretty serious legal question I can't answer, excuse me. I don't know, Bree, do you know?
I think that I typed a response and said that I wanted to ask you, but I said that it depends on the release, that the first one that they sign, like the wording of that first
Mhm.
release. Is that like, are you
Yeah,
signing a release as a model, or are you signing a release as like for a particular photo session? So I think that
yeah,
would be.
yeah, that's a
Oh, and
great
Liam
question.
says, Liam answers it. He says it's required for each session. So let's believe that.
And obviously that's the best protection, you know,
And then
because
is
there's
there a release for Android devices? Is the one the one that you were showing us, is that for Android also?
you'll have to look that up. There are plenty for Android. Um, we can stay a little bit if we have some questions, but I just want to point out our next two sessions that are coming up, getting ready for the holidays, in which we're going to be talking about, managing it all and still being a successful, productive photographer. Because from now on, I would say all you out there could really hit it hard on shooting family portraits and things for the holidays, and get a little bank account going for yourself for the holidays so you can buy some new equipment on Black Friday. So we'll talk
This is all
about some of the.
yeah. I'm like, every time we have this session, I then get online and like start looking for my family photographer. Like, I'm not kidding. This is my reminder.
And I try to
Anybody
book.
anybody in the
I need to
Texas
get
area
those
wants
too,
to travel?
for sure. And then in November, we do a nice presentation, really examining how we can give back with our photography. A lot of us can't give in a financial way. We can't just drop down a couple grand on somebody's charity, but we can give with our time in other ways, with our time, our heart, and our skills. And so we're going to talk to you guys about different ways that you can give back. And it's not completely selfless. Giving back and donating your time and skills usually will come back to you in terms of your business, fairly soon after you find yourself being connected with something. So those are two to mark on your calendar. They happen on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love to know what new sessions you guys might like to see next year. We'll take a little hiatus in December and then hopefully be back in January. And we love these and love having you guys go on. And I apologize because, man, I just spun out on this copyright stuff, and I just find it really, really fascinating. I taught myself a lot during this little research bit, and I'm going to start protecting myself a lot more. One thing I want to give you a heads up on: if you find that your image has been copyright infringed or taken, stolen, you have 3 months within that publication time to register your copy. Number one. I believe also the copyright lasts for I'm not sure. I thought it was 70 years. The copyright lasts for 70 years after the creator's dead. Ooh, sorry guys, I'm not, that part I didn't clarify, but it lasts for a very, very long time. So it's worth it. Two little tips there. Maybe look at a particular part of your portfolio, maybe just do one or two just to see what the process is like and see what happens. But I think that's one of my goals for my own self in the next month or two. Any other quick questions that we can answer? If they're there, I'm willing to stay a couple minutes. I don't want to keep anybody from their dinner plans or their drink plans or their assignments. So there's so much to talk about. We could go on for a whole another half an hour.
For sure. I think that most of the questions have been answered or are about those digital model releases. And I think, it's sort of a matter of finding the best one that works for you guys and for what you wanted to say. But I just want to go back again and talk about PPA and that's
Yes.
and I typed a link for everybody, and I know Jill's a member and I'm a member, and it really has a strong network of photographers that can help you with these issues even after you're finished with school. But what I like most about this is that when you're a member, they do have forms that are on their website that you can start with and download and use. Everything from contracts to model releases to things to help you along the way. And we have a couple of students that are still members and a few that that had said they were. Gunny had to jump off the call, but he's a current member and is going to the workshop in
Atlanta.
or the conference in January. And so that's somewhere where you guys can find resources and continue to have updated resources. So I suggest that you join PPA if you're able to, and they do have a student membership.
And a big legal presence on the Capitol, in the Capitol, on protecting our rights. They're a great organization, lots of reasons to join, which we discuss in another one of our presentations. So these presentations are here for you guys to answer all those questions that are kind of soft questions that really you can't find a place for in the classroom. And we love hearing your stories. So I didn't give you guys a whole lot of time on the line today just because I really feel this is super important and I wanted to give you as much information. I didn't even get to everything. Feel free to get in touch with either one of us about additional stuff, but the internet is your best friend, as you guys know. Really stick to those government sites for any kind of copyright, real law. And one quick thing, have a look at Photo Attorney Carolyn E. Wright. She has some of the best articles on copyright. And as students, you guys all know that you have the free membership to lynda.com, which you can access through the class, through your help link, and there's a fantastic interview with her that explains a lot of the stuff I discussed today, or we discussed today, online. You can play it in the background while you're editing your homework. So check it out.
Or I was going to say, you guys can stop binge watching Netflix and start binge watching lynda.com tutorials.
Exactly. Well, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you guys. Feel free to get in touch with us about this. Protect yourself. It's really, as artists, and I'm sure everyone has experienced the pain of having their images turned into something that they don't control. It does hurt. It does sting. So there's quite a few things that you can do, and know your rights. When you go out there and take those pictures, know your rights. Don't let people intimidate you. You have the control. So get after it and have fun making pictures. See ya.
Thanks, guys. Join us next month. Bye.
Yes, bye everybody. Thanks for coming.